Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to continue the build of my Leo Jaymz Type TL telecaster type guitar. In the previous episode we shielded the body and we got cut off right near the end of it due to technical difficulties. So today we're going to summarize the rest of that. But before that, we're going to take a look here. We've pretty much finished off with the fretboard and neck, but the fretboard still needs a little bit of work on it. It's fairly smooth, but right beside each of the black inlays, there's a little spot where the sandpaper didn't quite get close enough. What I found was when I was sanding, as soon as I got to the inlays, the black from the inlays came off and stained the rest of the fretboard in that area. So we've been very careful not to sand over the inlays, but when that happens, what happens is right either side of the inlays there's a little spot that's a little more rough than the rest of the fretboard. So we're going to go over it with some 1200 and be very careful to make sure that we get those spots, because when I put it up this way to the window I can see exactly where these spots are. So we're going to sand those down a bit. The back is good as done. We could put on another layer of the boiled linseed oil, but that can all be done down the road if we decide to. If not, then we don't. So, as I say, we've installed the machine heads and got them as level as we could. That's a whole other story. Go back and look. And that's where we're going to go. After that, we want to sand these down, give this one more coat, let it dry before we do the actual buffing of the frets themselves. There are maybe one or two that are going to have to be just tagged a little bit. Overall they're fairly level, but there are a couple of spots where we're just going to put a little extra touch on it, and then I believe that's where it goes to. Other than we start the installation of the body, we'll be doing the electronics in the body while this dries and before we start the fretwork. So that's where we're going today. Off to the bench. So once again, I must apologize for the window noise. There's going to be traffic and birds and that because it's a hot summer's day and we need the airflow. So what we do is we take a look at it in the reflection in the window, and we can say that on either side of this here inlay, there's a little spot that needs a little touch up. So we're going to get out our 1200 and just do a little hand sanding at those spots. I'm trying not to do the inlay itself because, well, as I said earlier, it seemed that when I was doing around the inlays, the rest of the spot took a little bit of a blackness to it. It almost seemed like it was staining it. So hopefully this will be our last time at the fretboard. We've got maybe about 4, possibly 5 layers of the satin finish polyurethane, and the rest of the spots do look good, like the rest of the fretboard. So now we're just going to get a little bit more of the polyurethane. I'm toying with the idea of just doing the inlaid areas to see if that will even up with the other ones. I probably should do the whole thing, but yeah, I'm gonna do the whole thing, aren't I? So we dip in the polyurethane. Now we open this up and Make sure we get a nice even clean coat on here. And we carefully, because I've got ding 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 a cloth, piece of towel to hold the neck itself, and let's do the whole stinking thing. We want a very thin coat, but we want complete coverage end to end. I'm going to go with the grain so that we don't see the streaks. You have to be careful because this is quick drying, so once you get the coating on there, move on. Now that looks much better. There's still a couple that have slight little marks beside the inlays, but we're gonna leave it at that. As I say, we can always go back later and put more. We can put more layers on afterwards, but let's close this up for now. You want to know what gives you carpal tunnel? Doing things like that. Let's remove this from the area, and we check the board one more time. It has still got what looks like rough marks here and there, but we're going to leave it. Let's put it in the window to dry. We gave it a coat earlier on of the polyurethane, but it's dry enough now that we can start on the installation of the electronics. Now what we did find, and this is something for Leo to know, that the bridge pickup, which is right here, now when it goes in there, this here area is completely taken up. This just about rubs on the outer edges of the cavity, and there's a hole right here where the conductor has to go down through and a ground conductor has to come back out. Now what happens is you put this down in there, it's going to shear them off, or it will eventually. There's barely enough room for them to fit. So what I ended up doing was taking a chisel and cutting out a little groove from the hole down to the base. So now the hole comes out through there, but there's also a little groove from the hole down to the base, and right there as well, where the where the ground cable comes up through, and the hole is just too high up. So we have grouted out a little groove right down to the base so that the conductor can fit in there and not be sheared off. But that way the cable can come over out that hole down into the base and not be sheared off by the pickup. So Leo, if you're listening or watching this, that is something I would do. Put a little groove down in there. The problem with it is the tunnel hole has to be up high because you're coming in on an angle here to get through to the control cavity. So this here part of the faceplate is where the drill bit's almost touching. So it has to start up high, but you can't be shearing off those cables with the pickup. So groove down to the base where the conductor can come up through, go down, around, through that groove up for the ground cable, which is going to be up here. So that is something for you to know. Okay. Oh, drink. So we take our control panel First off, we're going to take the ground cable and just make sure it stays grounded to the plate. Yellow to yellow. All these connectors are shaped like that, so one side is flat, one side is bubbled. That's how you know you're putting them together in the right manner. Yellow to yellow. Red to red. I think we might have already done this beforehand, but we're gonna do it again. Black to black. Plug this in. So first we're just going to see what the readings that the pickups give us. So with that, what you want to do is switch your meter to 20k ohms. And once you have this all plugged in, the other end, black to the shaft, red to the head. And we want to first off make sure that we are in the neck pickup and everything is cranked wide open. And we'll see that they politely, for left-handers, reversed the stinking volume button. Why they do this, I don't understand. Like, left-handers only have left-handed volume buttons on everything they ever touched in their stinking life. So when it comes to guitar, they gotta switch it the other way. Some people say it's so that you can wind it quickly with your thumb as you're playing. It doesn't make sense. So our neck pickup is giving us a reading of 4.8. Don't know if you can read that or not. Probably not. Take my word for it. It goes from 4.78 to 4.8. So we know that is working. Now we flip to the bridge pickup. Black to the shaft, red to the head. 5.32. So we know that we're at least getting some sort of output from those. Now we are going to put away our meter here for a bit. Now we're going to take the cord, plug it into the amp. And we already know that the volume is up. This is in the bridge pickup spot. Make sure your amp is turned down and turn it on. So at that, what we should do is, once you get a metal screwdriver or whatever, just touch the pickups and we know that we've got that one working. Now, we did this one before earlier, the neck one, individually when we had it apart, but we have the cover on it now, so all we can do is just, it is working, but it is a lot less coherent. So now we put the switch in both. You might not be able to hear it, but I can hear that. And so this pickup is either weak, or we might have to do is remove that outer cover and just use the pickups itself. What we're going to do is put it all together, find out if we need to do that. I mean, we might not need to, depends on how it works once we get this set up close to the strings, blah 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 blah. So there we go. Turn off your amp first and unplug everything cautiously. So we know that all this works now. We're going to get our needle nose pliers, carefully remove the plugs. And with that, we will get the body and start installing all this stuff. The pick guard and neck pickup is first. Very carefully feeding the wire down through the cavity. And into the control cavity. Then we aren't going to do this one because what we have to do, actually we have to do two things at once here. We have to get the ground conductor to go this way through the hole, and we need the bridge conductor to come this way through the hole. So we're going to put this through first. And once it makes its way into the control cavity, we are going to take the ground conductor, wrap it around below the connector, and use the red conductor to fish the ground back through the cavity. So there we have the ground conductor coming through. Now what we need to do is have this ground conductor once we get all the other conductors out of its way, it has to come up through the other hole in the bridge pickup cavity and come out up here, because what it does is it gets pinched by the bridge, and that's what grounds everything. But what we need that to do there is, and we are just going to take a little sliver of the shielding tape and tape the ground wire to the copper grounding tape. And that way we know we've made very good contact with the ground of the shielding. So now what we can do is feed the bridge conductor back through this hole. And Leo, it would be really cool if there was a way you could figure out to make those tunnels a little smoother. So now this goes down in there, being very careful to make sure that the conductors go down through those grooves that we made. And there we have that. Now we are ready to make our connections again. Bubbles down, bubbles down. Yellow to yellow. Bubbles down, bubbles down. Those bubbles. And the one thing we forgot to do was to install the power jack. So what we're going to do is we're not going to tighten them all down. We're just going to get them all started and sunk but not tightened. And that's because we have to double check, make sure that the jack doesn't have to be adjusted any. And now we can take a look. Everything looks good. Time to tighten the jack in there. We're doing it in a crisscross pattern, of course. So now the power jack is planted. So we can now plug in black to black. Bubbles up, bubbles up. Make sure that our connections are all tight. And then try and make everything fit into this cavity. Pull our wiring in a manner that makes it fit better. No pinching. Get this screw started first. Don't tighten it right down because we're going to want to make sure this screw gets started as well. And now we can plant. Once we get planted, double check, make sure that we don't have any tape sticking out. Line up the rest of these to make sure that we have room perfectly, and tighten. Now we will go over the rest of the pick guard. Leave them just a little bit loose, of course. So that they can all get adjusted slightly if we need to. We already removed the plastic from the pick guard and the pickup. There was actually 2 layers on the pick guard. Cool. Careful when you're putting the pick guard screws on. You don't want to tighten up these 2 beside the pickup because that is the height adjustments for the pickup itself. So now go over and make sure they're all tightened in a staggering pattern. Now that they're tight, we just want to make sure that they don't strip. You're putting a very light amount of pressure on, just enough to make sure that they are snug. And they are. Now we're going to do the bridge. The holes are already there. Get the screws started, always by hand. That way we know we're not going to use a power tool and create a big mess because we don't know our own strength. Bam, bam. And with that, halfway down, halfway down, halfway down, all the way down, but not tightened. All the way down, but not tightened. All the way down, but not tightened. And then we look at it for alignment. And everything seems to be exactly where it's supposed to be. So now we will tighten them. And there we have it. Drink. There's your little ASMR stuff. Now we can test the pickups again because we have now got everything in there. And test the pickups. The bridge pickup. Bridge pickup in both. Now the neck pickup in both. That's where you might be able to hear the difference. Now the neck pickup is very weak. It doesn't seem to be picking up very much. We might have to remove that and just see if we can get that cover on a little tighter. But what we're going to do is first off get the whole guitar put together first, and then we'll test it and see if we really need to or not. One step closer. So it is now time for fret polishing. How do you fret polish? First you tape off anything that's not frets. And how you want to do that is you want to first off, you want to put a piece of tape down the sides of the fretboard, around the sides of the neck. And you'll see why we do this shortly. And we go down the sides first so that after we get 37 pieces coming across this way, we can just peel this tape and take most of the rest of the tape off all at once. It's just a little trick I found out the second time I ever did this. So There we go. We have the original two sides on. Now we just take a small strip as wide as the fretboard and tape off anything that is not metal fret. Now obviously this is going to take me a while, so board, pause, or maybe we should just paint the fretboard green. That looks cool, dude. So now anything that's on the fretboard that is not fret is covered. And at that point, we are going to take our grade 4/0 or 400000 steel wool. That's the lightest, softest steel wool that you can get. Now, there's a couple of things you got to know about this. Number one is there will be shards that come off of this. So what we are going to do is remove this here covering, because this is the covering that I use for my guitars to sit on. We don't want metal shards in that. I'm going to get a different coating on here, maybe just go with the bare wood so it's easier to clean up. Number two, this is an electric guitar. You never want to get this stuff near your electronics on your electric guitar. Your pickups are magnets, and you don't want this stuff in any of the switches either. So we always, whenever you're doing an electric guitar, a lot of people use other goods. I have lots of this, so I'm going to use it. But whenever I do it on my electric guitars, I always take the neck off and take it away from the body of the guitar. The guitar is never anywhere near this when I do this. But the first thing we're going to do is basically go over it and polish it, and then we're going to get out the files and double check the height, because there was a couple of frets here and there that need just a little bit of a touch up. So we're going to do that. Like I say, it's not going to be a full fret job because, well, they're brand new frets and there's only a couple of spots where they really need to be adjusted. We'll show you how to figure that part out as well. And with that, off to the bench. So you're going to hear a little bit of background noise. Big deal. I got the fan on now because it's getting pretty warm in here. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at those frets. Now I'm going to polish up two of them and we'll double check how they look against all the rest of them. Now there's some polyurethane on these because, well, we polyurethaned the fretboard. So you have to make sure that you get all of that off. Takes a fair bit to get the polyurethane off there because of course there's like layers and layers of it. But once we get it done, you will see a major difference. Major difference. Oh yeah, major difference. Very, very major difference. Like so. And so that makes all this well worthwhile. Now the frets did have a little bit of tarnish on them to begin with, but a lot of what you just saw there was the polyurethane from the fretboard, and probably there was a layer of oiled linseed oil at the very bottom of it, because I did put at least one layer of oiled linseed oil on the fretboard before I clued in that I wasn't supposed to do that. So let's polish up the rest of these frets and then we'll get ready to do the slight leveling with the files. And temperature be damned. A pair of leather gloves is going to keep you from getting metal shards slivered into your fingers. Luckily my hands are like leather gloves to begin with, but even so, I've had them before. I don't want them again. And here is why you don't do this with the guitar intact. All that is metal shavings. And that is why you don't do it. So if you could imagine all that stuff getting into the electronics of your electric guitar, that's why we don't do it. So now, as I stated earlier, we're going to go over the frets and see how they sit. There's just a slight bit of rock in that first set, or the second set. It's good enough that we don't really have to. Okay. So we will get out our files. Johnson, get me the fret files. Not a paid promotion. Nanner again. So with these frets being brand new, they probably won't need much. But we're just going to take a look. That's good. So just in the middle of this one. I'm going to try and do this without doing the outer edges. And that's pretty much removed it. Voila. So this one in the middle and on this side. But it doesn't really need much. The middle stopped. This end's pretty much stopped. So we're just going over it like, yeah, see, we only want to go over it a couple of times. This one just in the middle. You want to get just 3 frets. If you get 4, you're not going to get a solid, accurate answer. So once you get to the point where this one in the middle, this is a brand new neck, so it really shouldn't need much of an adjustment. Now I'm gonna let some of them go with just a little bit of rock. And especially up in this end, because I don't play up in here very often yet. I'm mainly an acoustic player. I'm just starting to get into the electric. I've had electric since '87, but I never really went at it way too much. Mainly acoustic. Voila. Let's go over it just one more time to make sure, and on to the next. Okay, this one's getting a little trickier. So I'm going to get out the precision file. Enough. Okay. Oh, drink. Now with that, I've gone over the edges here. I haven't done anything with those frets yet. I don't know that I'm going to. Hard to tell when I got the tape on. I should have checked it a little more when the tape was off, but I didn't. So they have a pretty good feel to them. I didn't notice anything drastic beforehand. There's a couple up in here that might take a little bit of a like if I just feel a little bit using my finger as a stop or as a guide, just going along that side first. Because that's the side where my fingers are going to be dragging the most, and they all feel pretty good. So reverse action. Check this side. They all feel good, so I'm not going to worry about that. So what we're going to do now is just go over it one more time with the polishing, just to make sure. Don't have to really go too drastic with it because I've already polished them, but there's just a couple of spots here and there where you can still see the tarnish or the varnish or whatever. And as well, once we're polishing here, if we did make any progress with the actual filing, we can kind of polish those over as well, because the file may leave little slight grooves from the file. Okay. Oh, drink. Okay, so I've gone over it again, which is a good thing because there was a couple of frets that I either missed or else my thumbs were just going all gooey and it wasn't working anymore. So let's pick up. Wow. Our metal shards. Into the garbage. Now once I get done with this board, it's going to go outside and get hosed down so that we know we get all of those shards off. And go over the frets too, because there are little shards on there. Mm-hmm. And with that, we can now remove the tape. And that is why we put those two stripes down the side, so that we can take most of it all off with one foul swoop, instead of having to take 35 different strips. 35, more like 85. Look at those gleaming, shiny frets. And how did the fretboard? It took it pretty good. It's not the best fretboard in the world, but it certainly adequate. Adequate, that's a word. And there are still shards coming off on this magnet. Slightly damp piece of cut up t-shirt, but you want to get most of the water out of it. That can go in the garbage right away. Make sure it's dried off good. And remove any shards of slight metal that might be here. And with that, what was the next thing we were gonna do? Install. Now we can put the neck on the guitar because it's ready to go. Woohoo! And so with that, the last couple things to be done are the neck mounting plate and the string trees. Now the string trees had pilot holes drilled in already, but they were in the wrong spot. So I had to create 2 new holes which are in the wrong spot. Yeah, well, we will look into that as we go along. So we are going to get our neck things there. We're going to flip this over, being careful that the knobs do not go on the faceboard so that we do not bend them or anything. This slides into this spot there. Plate here. 4 screws. Always put in by hand. Yes. So that you know you're not going to create new holes. Always make sure that you thread it with your fingers. That way you're not going to make any new holes. And the holes were drilled in the neck in the exact right spot for this guitar. That's why on the back of the neck down under here and on the body is the number 142. 142 on both parts means that these 2 parts were made for each other. But as I say, always start all these screws by hand. Now if you use power tools, go ahead, but as I say, be very careful with them. And with that, we sink but do not tighten. Because as this one's going down in, that plate moves up a bit to meet the bevel of the screw. And if you've got that other one tightened right down too tight, then it's not going to slide and you're going to damage the plate or damage the guitar. Now it is just sunk. We check the fit through these spots here and across here. They seem to be planted fairly well. So we continue on. Using the torque wrench of your wrist, try and keep the same pressure on each one as you slowly put a little more pressure on that one. Try and keep the pressures even. See, that one's already a little over tight. Not over tight, but tighter than the other ones. So we will get the other ones tightened to that tightness. These two were pretty good. That one's pretty good. This one is now pretty good. So I'm going about a quarter of a turn each. That's not good. That one seemed to twist too much. Okay, this one is turning too much. We are going to do the toothpick trick on it before it decides to strip. We get a toothpick. We don't want it to go that deep because we're just trying to get it into the neck mainly only. So we want to cut it about here and push that part down as far as we can in that hole. And then that will take up the extra room, and this will go down in there, go either through or beside that toothpick. And it will you can feel it tightening up as you're going through the toothpick. This is a hardwood toothpick on top of everything else. And there you go. Now don't bam it, just make sure it's snug. These ones are all tighter than that one. And now they're all tight. So we avoided the problem before it happened. So now we have 99.9% of a Leo Jaymz type TL telecaster type guitar. What we have left to do now is string it up and do the setup. That we're going to leave for the final episode because this one's already been long enough. This is assembly, which it is. We still have to put in the string trees, but we won't do that until after we get the setup all figured out first. With that, thanks for watching. Please share, like, subscribe. Leave a comment below. Tell me what I did right, what I did wrong. I know I do things wrong. I am not a luthier. I'm just an old guy with too much time on my hands. So, with that, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye now.